Hi everyone, this is Sky here to speak to you a little bit about the Cancer eclipse we will be having on January the 10th, 2020. It is our second major eclipse in a matter of 2 weeks, so there are a lot of implications, and I know that we're all feeling a little bit crazy and all feeling a little bit unsure, but also aware and pretty clear on a lot of things that are coming up. So I just have the chart here in front of me. I am looking at the details and some of the aspects happening, and I am absolutely blown away by the Capricorn stellium that we are having here in January of 2020. I mean, we've got nodes, Jupiter, Sun, Mercury, Saturn, and Pluto all together in Capricorn, and the moon obviously coming on the other side in Cancer opposite and eclipsing all of that out. It's interesting. So it's almost like on January 10th, all of this heavy Capricorn energy, which deals with, hard work, resolutions, consolidation of power, power plays, control dynamics, all coming from, Pluto, which is transformative energy, Saturn, which is, resolve, structured work, Mercury, thought processes, and the Sun, vitality, Jupiter, luck, benevolence, and aspiration, politics as well. All of those things coming together in that consolidating energy of Capricorn, and being blocked out by the moon, being blocked out by the emotional centers. So there are a lot of disconnects that are really forced to come back together after about the time of January 10th. You might be able to look back and see that between maybe the times of December 26th, when we had the other Capricorn eclipse, which I will link in the top right hand corner of this video if you would like to revisit and reflect on that time. Between that time and now, January 10th, there will have maybe been a few things that kind of have to be left behind. A theme that's coming up for February readings is just a simple theme of never again, okay? There are a few things that can never be done again. There are a few things that can never really be taken on in the same way. Risks that can't be afforded anymore. And there are a lot of intense world dynamics right now as well. Again, I'm not a political channel, and I don't really speak much about politics, period, because I don't like to make people feel divided in any way, but there are some pretty big things at stake right now, and there are a few things that can really never be done in the same way again without a lot of extreme repercussion, because Capricorn energy is about consequences. It is a consequential sign. It is a sign that does not allow people to really get away with things. It keeps the record. It keeps track. It generates receipts. And, especially with Pluto and Saturn being conjunct in Capricorn, and that exact conjunction is happening during this eclipse, guys. A Pluto-Saturn conjunction is, it just has so much meaning. It's rare that these two planets come together. They're both very slow-moving. They do not happen frequently. Sometimes a transit like this, it takes once every 30 years sometimes or more. So it's a lot to imagine that those two extremely heavy energies are coming together in the heavy and dense sign of Capricorn. It's basically what I'm trying to say is it's a rare configuration, and both of those planets deal with extreme power. They both deal with big implications, big repercussions, big decisions being made for many people. Consolidation of power, basically. And this channels into a lot of spheres of our lives. For some of us, this plays out depending on which house it's transiting in your chart. It may play out in your relationship to society. It may play out in your inner relationships. It may play out in your career. But one way or another, each of us are gifted a certain amount of power during this time. And something that I've talked a lot about is how you're choosing to use your power. If you guys saw my benevolence messages over on Patreon, which now is a great time to join. It's New Year. I do a specific podcast over there just called Benevolence, which is about, just sort of aligning ourselves spiritually to accept in as much benevolence as we can and talking about those dynamics. But I've talked a lot about how everybody has quite a bit of power right here and now, and Saturn and Pluto are kind of keeping track of how people are using their power and seeing if people deserve that power and seeing if people can hang on to it. So there's integrity and responsibility here, and there's a lot of receipts generated for all of the actions that we take. And those receipts and what we've chosen to spend, there's a big emphasis on spending, whether we're talking time, money, or energy. And there's a clear record generated by how we spend here, okay? So my recommendation with this eclipse is beware of emotional scenes, beware of power plays, and beware of letting emotions dictate your power, okay? Beware of your words during this time, because this is also the time where you can say something emotional as a power play, and it can be held against you for the rest of your life. This is the time where it's really destructive to use words destructively. It's actually quite simple, and this is also what I love about Capricorn energy, is there's a simplicity in it. It's very much do unto others as you'd have them do to you. It's very much say what you mean what you say, and we just have to really watch out for quick-tempered moments that will never really give us anything in the long run, because Saturn and Pluto coming together in conjunction, it's like the penultimate idea of long run, of long-term things. You might see that everything that you do here and now in this month of January and around these eclipses, it does not really play out actually in the short term, but you can look back in hindsight during this time 10, 20, even 30 years in the future and see, okay, that time really changed the game, or that time was a very catalyzing experience. So there's a lot of discretion, and there's a lot of need for reflection, and a lot of need for making sure that all the I's are dotted, all the T's are crossed, making sure that everything is in alignment, because there can also be strategies of like provocation during this time too, or strategies where what appears to be a win is actually a loss in the long term. So you have to watch out. Capricorn can be a little bit shifty too. It's not like deceptive in the way that like maybe a Pisces or Cancer. We do have Cancer involved in this eclipse, so maybe there is a little bit more of a shiftiness here, where you might actually see that there's a third party, or there's a third outside source that is trying to escalate dynamics, or trying to escalate power plays between two other sources to distract. So this can happen in interpersonal relationships. This can happen where you see that almost in your household or in your personal experience, there's a need for conflict, or there's a need to see that there can be drama just to maybe distract from more mundane things, or the fear of mundane experiences, or feeling condemned to like domesticity as well as an aspect here too, where we might see that in our own households there's a need for drama, or there's a need for pinpointing problems just to avoid peace. So the avoidance of peace is here too. And what is also here on account of that is a new desire for peace. There's kind of like, there's an empathy in this time period and being activated by this eclipse, because Cancer is probably the most empathetic sign of the zodiac. And that's what's blocking out this Capricorn energy. So there will be a lot of emotional plays, and people's empathy can be manipulated with this energy. But also, I believe that it can actually overcome some of the larger issues at hand, where people understand that, like death and pain is not the answer to certain things. So personally, in your own life, this is an incredible time to do acts of peace. This is an incredible time to make an act of peace toward yourself and toward your own body. To channel out this Cancer Capricorn eclipse well starts really at basic needs. And this is something else I talked about in the Benevolence podcast. Basic needs starting everything, food, water, shelter. Are you giving to your body well? Are you giving to your nourishment well? Actually, one of the most shocking things to me is how humanity right now at a collective level is almost more malnourished than it has ever been, despite having access to a lot of nourishing things. So ending old cycles of malnourishment is important. Ending old cycles of self-sabotage or self-deprivation is vital with this transit, because this transit is all about that too. Capricorn is the penultimate dieting energy. It's taking, and this is a necessary thing. Like, we also don't want to just consume, but we have to consume too. So balancing out how we consume, I did talk about this a little bit in the last eclipse video too. What we choose to consume, having discretion about what we consume, whether this be food, media, all of these things, being discreet, being being aware of what we've taken in and how is it desensitizing us. This is a desensitizing energy too, where people can start to kind of have their moral compasses challenged. And again, this can be societally or this can be interpersonally too. You can see that people come into your life who are very desensitized at this time. You can see that people are kind of using each other, even if it seems like love, for some kind of entertainment, because there's not really any sensitization to right or wrong. So we're just like entertain. I need things to entertain me, like having to have a distracted mind, having to have many things, like having to be full. Capricorn is the feeling of fullness. It can be a hoarding energy. It sometimes does not like to be empty, yet it has to empty itself out and it has to purge. This is like the karmic paradox of the Capricorn sign, is it wants to have a lot of things, full stomach, full bank account, full gas tank, full, this is all good, and they achieve this, but also it deals with then taking it away, donating, spending money, using the gas in the tank. This is Capricorn energy, and it's the Capricorn Cancer axis as well. So all of these things are what I encourage you spiritually to look at, how you're consuming, how you're using, and how you can also cut back. You might be really surprised to look at your bank statements or to look at your spending or your time schedules, your timetables, or your sleep time. You might be really surprised to look at it and see how much is kind of being wasted. So looking at how we're wasting, looking at how we're not getting benefit from the things that we're paying for or the things that we are, accepting as almost a part of our need. Okay. So needs being revisited, wants being revisited, expenditures being revisited. This is Capricorn energy. And I will say, guys, this eclipse and these two eclipses that we've had are paradigm shifters. They always are, but having them so close together in the same signs, it's like just a double dose of paradigm shift. And to live in the exact same way or to force the same exact patterns from the past January 10th is something that can only really bring about what do I want to say? It's not necessarily destructive, and this is the interesting thing about Capricorn energy, is sometimes to do the wrong thing does not necessarily yield an obvious consequence, but it does give a blandness, or it gives an existential sort of, what do I want to say? Unendingness, an infinite sense of existentialism entering into the life as a result of refusing to change or refusing to come past certain old worn out ways of being. So this is Saturn energy, okay? And really journaling or looking back or looking into the past, looking at old pictures, looking at old habits is a rewarding thing right now if you can bring forth the lesson, because this is the penultimate lesson energy as well. So we're all learning a lot of lessons. A lesson will click into place around January 10th. You should, on the positive side of this transit, guys, I'm going to speak just a little bit about the positive specifically, and that is decisiveness. Definitive decisiveness, where you can not really second guess yourself so much. What I love about Capricorn energy is that it really makes things clear and it makes things honest. Over the last few years, it's been hard to know what is the best thing to pursue or leave behind, because it's not felt positive about, if I stop pursuing this thing or if I leave this thing behind, am I really sure that that's benefiting me? One great thing about these eclipses in Capricorn is it does make things quite clear. So if you're not liking your job anymore, if you're not liking the relationship anymore, if your health is not acting well, there's something very honest and true about it. And there's something actually very clear about where to go. This time symbolically is very clear and open. So a lot of synchronicities, a lot of symbolism. It's almost like if you're in the darkness, go towards the light, the light leads you to the best place. In the past, over the last few years, especially from around 2012 to 2015, there was a lot of false light, okay? And a lot of us have been coping from that false light throughout 2016 through 2019. And here in 2020, false light is actually a bit less prevalent. Now, I can't say for sure how long that will last, and I'll keep up with it. I'll keep track, and I'll be alerting you guys. Hit the subscribe button. I'll keep you guys in the loop about it. But right now, during this time, the light is very honest. So I'm not sure how long it will last, but it is true for now. So enjoy that for this eclipse, especially right after the eclipse. It's going to be pretty honest. So anyway, guys, thank you guys so much for being here. I think I'm going to wrap up the video on this note. I'm actually going to end this video with an excerpt from my Benevolence podcast on Patreon. If you guys wanted to jump over to my Patreon page and start off your calendar new year with an investment in your own healing journey. It goes to supporting my channel. It keeps me, in stock of coffee, and I just had to purchase a new computer to even be able to bring this to you guys anymore. So Patreon is how this effort keeps itself going. And I also, it's not just a donation platform. I also work specifically on Patreon and deliver specific things for what my patrons are subscribing to. So it's not just free money. It's something that I also work really diligently on, and I offer a podcast over there, and also early ad-free access to my general readings, just for very, very small contributions to my efforts here. So on that note, guys, thank you so much for being here. Not everyone can do Patreon, I know, so if you can just hit the subscribe button over here on YouTube and hit the like button, that's really, and comment as well. Let me know how you're doing during this time. Let me know what you think of this energy. That is also completely amazing. So thank you guys so much for being here. I'm excited for 2020. And without further ado, let's start this excerpt from the Patreon January Benevolence Messages. Much love, guys. See you soon. Bye. So, honesty in the month of January is a commodity like no other. And what we start to see at a collective level is there's a modesty, there's a humility, and there is an acceptance as well, a release desperately needed by some of us in things that are not quite cutting it, okay? Things that just can't quite get the fidelity, things that just can't quite immerse or connect or understand in our lives. These things have to be released, or they have to become real. They have to become like audible in our lives.